We are here at Spookala, and it is so much fun here. It's so cool. We're going to try to see who we can find, who we can interview, walk around the floor for a little bit. You know the vibes. You know what's up. All right, let's get into it. Woo!
It's time for another On the Spot. On the Spot.
Killer clowns are quite the cliche from Joker to Pennywise. Terrifier somehow broke through that cliche to create an instantly recognizable character who actually makes grown men scared again at the movies. How does it feel knowing you've left an impact on the horror genre to the point where people pass out and puke watching it?
Wow. It's pretty surreal, especially because I've been a fan of horror movies and the slashers since I'm a little kid. Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers, all the classics.
The big three.
The big three. And I used to come to horror conventions like this as a kid, as a fan, to meet the actors who played those characters and to meet Tom Savini, who's my special effects, makeup artist hero, basically. And he's the one who got me interested in effects, of course, but then that allowed me to sort of segue into filmmaking. That's how I got interested in everything. So I always kind of remind myself, or try to remind myself, and say, like, what would the little 7-year-old Damien think, if he could see what would happen and what would become of all this. Because, at some point, I'm still trying to please that little kid. It's like I'm making movies for him. Like, what would he like to see? What's missing from today's movies that I would have loved as a kid? So to see it kind of come full circle and have people come up to me and say that I've created an icon is just the greatest dream come true. It's really quite amazing.
That's awesome. Art the Clown started out quite different and more human-like than your previous short film segments. Why did you make the creative changes over time to have him be more supernatural?
Because all your classic characters, the slashers, typically all become supernatural at some point, or sometimes they'll get delivered a death blow where you assume that they must be dead, but then the next installment they're just still alive. And you're like, how did they survive that? That's So I wanted to just jump in and take out the killer and say, let's not worry about that and let's jump right into him being supernatural. But embrace that this time going in, whereas other slashers kind of gloss over it and they don't really explain why he's coming back, what sort of supernatural evil or entity is driving, what kind of force is driving this character. I wanted to really explore that and make that evil a character in Terrifier 2.
The first film was made roughly for $33,000, and you guys made the sequel for $250,000, and it made around $10 million, and that's almost unheard of anymore when it comes to this kind of genre in horror. What do you think it is about the movie that made so many people want to go out and support it?
We always say, listen, we wouldn't be where we are without the fans, for real, because there was never, even with Terrifier 1, there was never any marketing behind the movie, any kind of financial push. It was just always word of mouth. There was horror fans saying, yo, you have to check out this crazy killer clown
that's
movie.
How I found it.
Yeah, it's just organic. It was just very organic. So, and that just continued to happen, basically. There was no marketing behind Terrifier 2. It was just people suddenly saying, it's going to be in theaters, I hear. We have to go see it. They're saying it's like really bloody, blah, blah, blah. And then once we started hearing stories of people fainting and puking, it went viral. And then everybody started going to see it. Because we weren't even prepared to keep that movie in the movie theaters. It was only supposed to play for a weekend, basically.
Oh, wow.
And then it did so much money, and people were like, whoa, we have to kind of try and keep this in the theater. And there was like a scramble. So the first week, after that first weekend, it took a huge dip because they were trying to get it into theaters, and they had to go through all these back channels and, whatever, make it happen. So then when they finally got it back in theaters that following weekend, they got it onto less screens, but it made more money than it made the previous weekend,
wow.
Which is pretty unprecedented. Like, everything about it was very rare.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then it just kept going and just kept making more money. And then it was, at one weekend, it reached the top 4, highest grossing movies in the box office, like number 4. It was ridiculous. So just unbelievable, very surreal. We're very grateful for that. We did not expect that to happen.
It's impressive, honestly. Richard of the Howard Stern Show recently explained to Howard about all the gory scenes in the film, plus how the Kickstarter campaign got the sequel made. Howard Stern discussing your film on air. That's how popular it's grown in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, that was one of those moments that like pinch yourself moments. I'll remember that day probably for the rest of my life. I woke up that morning and checked my phone, and it's just text messages from almost everybody I know. And they're like, dude, Howard Stern is talking about Terrifier right now. It's like getting out of bed, I'm like, how do I see this? I was like subscribing to Sirius. I'm like trying to figure out how to track down the video. And because I'm such a huge Howard Stern fan.
So is my dad.
Since I'm like 13 or whatever. I mean, he's been around forever. So to hear him talk about it, to hear him say Terrifier and Art the Clown and say he likes Art, he's like he likes that his name is Art, and that made him laugh. I was just like, this is the craziest thing ever. So those moments like that, and then like the same week, Stephen King tweeted about us.
Oh, wow.
Twice. He tweeted, has anybody seen this Terrifier movie? Looks pretty good. And then a couple of weeks later, he said, Terrifier 2, grossing you out, old school, because we managed to get him a screener of the movie. And he actually watched it, and he left us a nice tweet that we now put on the poster. So when you buy the DVD or whatever, that Stephen King quote is on the poster.
I gotta buy the DVD now. Will you be giving Richard a brief cameo in part 3 for his loyalty? Possibly even an awesome death scene?
I would love to. I'd say we owe him that at least, for sure. And we're still getting him a goodie basket. We're going to give him a bunch of things just for that, because that meant the world to us. It was just the way he championed the movie was amazing.
Which of the on-screen kills was your favorite to direct, and which was your favorite to rewatch?
Ooh, favorite to direct and rewatch. I mean, just off the top of my head, just my favorite that I'm proud of is the bedroom scene, is the alley kill scene in part 2, just because we spent so much time, my producer Phil and I, building all of those special effects. Because originally we went into shoot that scene. We were going to hire another makeup team. Long story short, they wound up pulling out, and then I had to just basically do everything again on my own, there was like a lot of special effects.
Yeah.
And we weren't ready. Like we were already scheduled to shoot, but we didn't have those effects built. And then we started shooting it, and I was like, oh man, like none of this stuff is coming out anywhere near as good as the hacksaw scene. So I'm like, I know inevitably we're going to have to come back and reshoot this scene. And then we got hit with COVID and went into the lockdown, and I said, this is the perfect opportunity now. We have all this time. We can build all these special effects, do them right, and have them ready, and then when we get out of this, we can go back and shoot it. And that's what we did. So we spent about 3 months, Phil and I, building everything you see in that scene, and then we shot the scene for about 5 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I guess that was probably my favorite to direct as well, just because of Casey Hartnett, who plays Allie, was the most amazing, supportive actor I ever worked with in that kind of situation. I mean, that's not true, because Catherine Corcoran from Terrifier 1 was amazing as well, but Catherine only had to film for 1 day, and hers was super intense, that hacksaw scene, because what you see is actually happening. I mean, she's really hanging upside down by her ankles. I mean, there's no trickery, so it was very tricky. She could only hang upside down for 45 seconds at a time. We had to make sure we get her up, and we had to be like a well-oiled machine, make sure she was safe. But with Casey, she was really, for 5 days straight, 14-hour days. I mean, she was covered head to toe in glue, prosthetics, and her arm tucked behind her back in the most uncomfortable position, and just glued to the rug just because the blood. She was stuck to the rug. She couldn't even crawl. I mean, really,
she was dedicated.
She was so dedicated and never complained. It was just so gung-ho about making that scene amazing. And that was the same thing with Catherine, and going into those kill scenes, you need that support from your actor, because it could get really stressful and really intense, and you want them to be on board and feel safe and feel like what you're doing is going to be worth it. And thankfully, both of those scenes have gone on to, I don't know, what do you want to say, become notorious or get people talking.
Everyone sees them on YouTube, the clips. I mean, it gets clipped.
It gets clipped. The hacksaw scene is the one everybody talked about when they left Terrifier 1, and now part 2, her scene has everybody puking and passing out. So it's not in vain.
Do you keep pumping out sequels to ride the wave of excitement like Jason Voorhees or Freddy Krueger, or does it all have to come to the end at some point? How long do you see yourself spending time with Art the Clown after part 3?
I only make the sequels so far because I still have so many, one overall story I want to tell with Art the Clown, but there's so many cool situations and scenarios that I must put that character in before I'm done with him. But I feel like I only have, personally, maybe 2 movies left in me with that character before I just start recycling too many things, or I've done all my great kill scenes that I could possibly do with him, and then everything just starts taking steps down and starts getting stale. So that is a big concern. And I love taking care of my heroes as well. It's something that I don't like that happens in a lot of franchises, when you start off the franchise with these great protagonists, and then you just keep making more and more movies because your villain is so popular, which I totally understand. They want to make money, and fans just are dying to see. But then in regards to the overall story, these heroes that you're building up, they just start just like killing them off, or they peter out, or they wind up being meaningless by like part 7, and you're like, why did I follow that character for 7 movies if nothing happened with him, or they wound up just getting killed after 7 movies? It's like, you know what I mean? There needs to be some sort of satisfying resolution or something with those characters. So this is my favorite character that I ever wrote, and Terrifier is just as much her story as it is Art's. So I just want to make sure that I have a satisfying conclusion between the both of them. And now that doesn't mean Cien is safe by any means, but there needs to be a solid resolution between those characters, and hopefully I could do that within 1 or 2 more movies.
And since we're here at Spookala, what scares the mind of the man who made Terrifier? What is the one thing that truly scares you the most?
Oh wow, like real life scares me.
That's so real. That is so real.
Real life scares me. People scare me. I don't know. Like in terms of movies, I would say when I was a kid, The Exorcist genuinely creeped me out. And when I was very young, zombies creeped me out. Like Dawn of the Dead creeped me out. I still love zombies. That's my favorite subgenre of horror, and I would love to make a zombie movie. It's one of my dream projects.
That'd be sick.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that.
I'm trying.
Slow or fast?
Slow. Always slow. Yeah.
Are they going to be eating brains?
Zombies. No, everything. Whatever they get their teeth on. Yeah.
Everyone's going to be puking. They're going to be passing out and fainting.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
All right, well, that is it. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right, and that is it. I hope you enjoyed. I know, talking to Damien and David, it was just so much fun. I had such a blast talking to them. It'd be really hard watching Terrifier and they're doing all these gory scenes. And David's also the Grinch, the mean one. Go check that out too. This is awesome. All right, I'll see you guys later. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, all the fun stuff.